Welcome to Mojo Talks. I'm Eric, and today we're talking about Gary Oldman, because he was on the red carpet this week at the SAG Awards and announced in passing that he would like to play a character in the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We think that would be a great idea, and the whole internet seems to think that, because the internet is all abuzz. And so I've assembled a panel here at Mojo with some of our experts. And we want to talk about the characters that we think would be a perfect fit for Gary Oldman in the MCU. So here we have Matt and Justin. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
So Gary Oldman is already in a superhero franchise. He does play Commissioner Gordon in the Dark Knight Rises, or in the Dark Knight Trilogy, I should say. So what do you guys think? It's not necessarily the type of character that we would imagine from Gary Oldman in that kind of movie.
It's kind of an understated role for Gary Oldman, considering he takes on a lot of big bravado roles where he gets to chew the scenery a little bit more. Not so much with Commissioner Gordon, but still a memorable performance. I mean, for me growing up, that was kind of the performance that I remember Gary Oldman in the most, just because I've watched those movies hundreds of times, so it's kind of etched in my brain.
Yeah, to be honest about it, though, Gary Oldman has played both sides of the spectrum and really every character in between, so nothing he takes on nowadays surprises me.
No, that's true, and I think you were just saying off camera before that he is so iconic, both because of what you were saying with the Dark Knight movies, but also because of Harry Potter.
Absolutely. I mean, to people in Justin and my generation, he really is an icon. And, you know, the fact that he wants to be in a movie franchise that we all love so much is really exciting, which is why the internet is abuzz, as they say.
So let's get to it. Who are some of the characters that you could imagine he would be the perfect fit for? Because, I mean, he has that element of being so unhinged that he really could take any character. Who are you thinking?
The one that immediately comes to mind is Norman Osborn. I think having him in a role of a villain, he's done it a million times. He's well versed in kind of villainy and that kind of antagonist role. And I'd love to see him in a kind of unhinged role, like you were saying, like Norman Osborn, who's someone who starts his journey as like a very uptight businessman, but then slowly loses their mind. I think, look, we've seen Willem Dafoe do a great job in that role. Yeah. But I think Gary Oldman could bring something a little different, a little bit more unhinged, a little bit more in keeping with some of the things that we've seen him do before in movies like Leon the Professional and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, let's go over some of his villain characters, because there are some classic ones. You know, he did Bram Stoker's Dracula. He was Drexel in True Romance, one of my absolute favorite performances of all time. Stansfield in The Professional, Zorg in The Fifth Element, Korshinov in Air Force One, and he was also Francis Dollarhide in Red Dragon. Remember the guy with the messed up face who gets thrown to the pigs? So I mean, nobody can do evil like Gary Oldman can do.
He can do a great bad guy, but what I love about Gary Oldman bad guys is that he can pull off menacing but still be playful with it. Like, you can tell he's kind of having fun with it, which really is perfect for the Green Goblin. I mean, like you said, Willem Dafoe put his own spin on that, and we kind of saw Chris Cooper play the character a little bit in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I think that Gary Oldman could really bring something unique to the character, especially seeing as though we're seeing Spider-Man as a brand new type of character in the MCU now. So
you don't think you think it's possible that they could bring Norman back?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He's an essential villain to Spider-Man. I think it's one of those things where there's been enough distance between Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire version that had Willem Dafoe, and now, and they really haven't done the Green Goblin proper since then, so I think it would be interesting to see.
It'd be cool if they did a Green Goblin movie, period.
That could be interesting for sure.
If they're going to do it, Gary Oldman's the guy to go with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so who else are you thinking?
Well, I mean, we've talked a little bit, and we mentioned this with the Green Goblin, but, you know, Marvel just inherited a bunch of Fox properties. So we're saying Magneto is going to be in the MCU at some point.
Okay.
And, you know, we've seen some incredible actors play Magneto. We've seen both Michael Fassbender and Ian McKellen, and those are high caliber guys.
Do you have a preference between the two?
Honestly, I might have to go with the classic Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to have the debate, but I can't disagree with that. It's just, he is Magneto in my eyes. When I read comics, I hear that voice.
Well, that's just it. So if Gary Oldman steps into the role, not that Fassbender did a bad role, but you know, I always thought it's really got to go to Ian.
Yeah. Well, Fassbender provided something different because he like showed the journey of how that character got to where he is when we pick up with him in the first X-Men movie. We get to see a young Magneto, which is something that we don't really get to see a lot of. But I think it's time, now that Marvel has re-inherited all those properties, they're going to try and go somewhere new with the franchise. And what better place to start than with Gary Oldman as one of your leads? I mean, it's just, you can't get better than that.
So a little tidbit that I found out, did you know that Gary Oldman once submitted a tape, a voice tape for an audition for Revenge of the Sith?
I did not know
Yes,
that.
yes. In fact,
for Darth Maul?
For General Grievous.
Oh.
Yeah, and George Lucas later chose the anonymous audition of Matthew Wood for the role. So imagine that. He also, by the way, at one point auditioned for, or no, he turned down the role of Edward Scissorhands.
That would have been interesting.
Imagine
I
that.
can kind of see it, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. That's interesting.
I mean, it's so iconic and attached to Johnny Depp, but imagine.
But if he'd taken that, would he be playing the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland? I mean, like, would he have?
That would have changed the trajectory. We'd be talking
would he have
about.
taken over that role as like Tim Burton's Muse?
That's very possible.
Yeah, I mean, he is very muse-worthy.
Yeah, I'd say so.
What about the more kind of cosmic or galactic characters? Anything that we can think of?
Galactic is a key word there because another one of the properties that Marvel was able to get back because of the Fox acquisition is the Fantastic Four, and with the Fantastic Four comes Galactus. Now, we have the payoff coming of Thanos in the upcoming 2 Avengers movies, the first being Infinity War, the second one we don't know the title yet, but that's paying off nearly 7 years, 8 years of him being set up to be the big bad in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and seemingly that'll be the end of his run, and we'll need a new big bad to take over his place.
And it doesn't get bigger and badder.
Doesn't get bigger and badder than Galactus, and I mean, it would be pretty cool to have someone of the stature of Gary Oldman to take on that role.
Yeah, because he's essentially like a god. I mean, you have to have someone so incredibly fine-tuned as an actor to play that kind of role. But you know, but is he even a bad guy? Because we were talking about all the villains that Gary Oldman has played. Is Galactus a bad guy?
Well, I mean, we've talked about Gary Oldman's depth and range, and the fact that Galactus has this sort of like, you know, this is just who he is. Like, he has to do this to survive, and you can have that discussion. I think Gary Oldman could bring that side of the character to light better than most actors out there today.
But do you think he's a bad guy?
He eats planets. I mean, it's tough.
I eat cheeseburgers. Am I a bad guy? You know, I'm very
exactly. Is it just you know, the way of the world that you know, life has to feed on life, and it's you know, does he have evil intentions?
It would be an interesting place to go after Thanos, who's very much about, in the comic books, he's about impressing the embodiment of death.
Right.
So he's all about killing and murder, all in the sake of wooing the physical embodiment of death. So he is very clearly in the villain category when it comes to the comics. Galactus is a bit of in a gray area. It really depends on your perspective. At least he's an antagonist whenever he visits Earth, because we do not want to be eaten. I think that's fair to say.
That is a fair assessment.
Yeah, it kind of keeps bringing me back to that Loki quote from the Avengers where he says, an ant has no quarrel with a boot. Like, Galactus is very much the boot trying to step on Earth, and more so than Loki was ever capable of being. But so in that regard, it's like he is on a different level than humanity, and the fact is our sort of moral evil and good don't really apply to him in a certain way.
And nobody is more suited to kind of walk that line than someone like Gary Oldman.
Right. I mean, my big question when we're talking about Gary Oldman and Galactus is how would they do it? Because, I mean, we've seen 20th Century Fox kind of botch it.
He will not be a giant cloud, hopefully, this time around.
But, I mean,
that is, I think, the least.
But if anyone can play a giant cloud, why not Gary
That's
Oldman?
fair, yeah.
Right.
I'd see it.
I mean, I keep coming back to Doctor Strange, because Benedict Cumberbatch actually played 2 roles in that. He played Doctor Strange, and then he played Dormammu. He CGI'd the face and did the voice. So I kind of see Gary Oldman doing a very CGI-heavy, like, you know, using his theater and his classic acting skills and gravitas to sort of bring the character to life that way.
And if anyone can make that goofy, giant purple suit work, it's probably Gary Oldman. That's the one thing I want to see. If they do Galactus, they need to keep the suit. No more of this big cloud stuff.
Right.
I want to see the purple.
We just want to make sure he doesn't look like Grimace from McDonald's too.
Fair enough.
Well, the conversation is going to continue, and I know that we're working on our own top 5. We'll have more people to add to that list, but this is just a little bit of a teaser. So look out. That's probably coming out sometime next week. So look out for our top 10 list. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thanks very much for having us.
And thank you guys for joining us. Like, subscribe to all that fun stuff, and we'll see you next time on Mojo Talks.